try to get some help and nobody can help me. But they not understand when me I talk about. Lady, you don't understand when me I say, I'm not understanding. What you mean you don't understand? You're not Jamaican, you're not chat Patwa. Patwa is the tongue of a true Jamaican, represented by the sound of a true Jamaican. So the English of a not true Jamaican. They're just seen at the place as the official one. But come let me tell you about true Jamaican. Feel you know this spell like right Jamaican. Bring it in and it's fully paid in Jamaican. Make them proud that the thing represent the nation. You call yourself Jamaican but you don't chat Patwa. I come and speak this spooky but English rather. And for them a walk on a put Patwa down. Jamaican make we big it up and prove him mother tongue. Some a try write in the English way. Do not twist it tongue and some fantasy. Me not really business when nobody wants say. If we write Jamaican, the Jamaican way. Patwa is the tongue of a true Jamaican, represented by the sound of a true Jamaican. So the English of a not true Jamaican. It just seen at the place as the official one. It's a chunk, them no in a Japan, cock up in a them store and a chat Jamaican. Them want me to tell you the confusion, so them learn from me Patwa down to the last land. Tell you about the man when him Frederick Cassidy. Him invent the system and the writing strategy. 5 shot bowl and 3 long one. 4 double bowl, 22 consonant. Everybody know we know VIP in everything. Reggae music after we Bob Marley and the king. But when it come to the Patwa, I just feel it in. Yeah, me ready for bust it out the writing system. Patwa is the tongue of a true Jamaican, represented by the sound of a true Jamaican. So the English of a true Jamaican, it's just in at the place as the official one. But come let me tell you about true Jamaican. We learn how to spell and write Jamaican. Bring it in at the school in Pinny Jamaican. Make them proud that the thing represent the nation. We have a E like in a Tico that go T-I-K. We have a E like in a Peco that go P-E-K. We have a A like in a Baco that go B-A-K. One letter to one sound is the Jamaican way. Give me a O like in a cut when I use the U. Give me a O like in a cook when I use so cut a K-O-T and cook a K-U-K. This is how you spell it the Jamaican way. Patwa is the tongue of a true Jamaican, represented by the sound of a true Jamaican. So the English of a not true Jamaican. It just in at the place as the official one. Mr. Lee, Mr. Chang, them no in a Japan, cock up in a them store and a chat Jamaican. Them want make the same no the confusion. So them learn from it Patwa down to the last class. The Jamaican we no got so we pronounce it better. K and C don't pronounce the same way. So every can sound here it must be a head. B for beef and a D for dog. A C-H for chop, so we go praise the Lord. We have a F for food and a G for go. And an H for heavens, it's a get it on. Patwa is the tongue of a true Jamaican, represented by the sound of a true Jamaican. So the English of a not a true Jamaican. It just seen at the place as the official one. But come let me tell you about true Jamaican. We learn how to spell and write Jamaican. Bring it in at the school if you need them Jamaican. Make them proud that the thing represent the nation. K and W replace the Q. We not got no Q, you not hear me. We have 3 long but we line up in a the thing. T-I-I for when we drinking on the morning. A-A for ball and that a reggae boy singing. You for shoot goal neck for the scoring. This is just some way to help with the writing. We have a thing like we now each for the system. Patwa is the tongue of a true Jamaican, represented by the sound of a true Jamaican. So the English of a not true Jamaican. It just in at the place as the official one. Mr. Lee, Mr. Chang, them no in a Japan, cock up in a them store and a chat Jamaican. Them want make the same without the confusion. So them learn from we Patwa down to the last land. I am going in a straight no. Me a go, me they go, me that go there. This is how you say the Jamaican way. Continue one sense the Jamaican way. People that go, she me that go, him me that go. Yo, just the past tense with the verb. You know hear what me say? This is how you do it the Jamaican way. Patwa is the tongue of a true Jamaican, represented by the son of a true Jamaican. So the English of a not a true Jamaican. It just in at the place as the official one. But come let me tell you about true Jamaican. We learn how to spell and write Jamaican. Bring it in at the school if you need them Jamaican. Make them proud that the thing represent the nation. Patwa is the tongue of a true Jamaican, represented by the son of a true Jamaican. So the English of a not a true Jamaican. It just in at the place as the official one. Mr. Lee, Mr. Chang, them no in a Japan, cock up in a them store and a chat Jamaican. Them want make the same without the confusion. So them learn from it. Patwa is the tongue of a true Jamaican.
Alright. 1 second.
Welcome everybody. Me I wonder what now go with the rest of it. But anyways, I'm come to tell you which part of the can find broadcast Jamaica. But if on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, plus if I want to hear the news in Jamaica, just listen to New Start 93 FM in the afternoon.
All right, should I go ahead? All right, I would just want to welcome everyone to our presentation today for International Mother Language Day. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming to remember all of the things that we're able to do when we can appreciate our mother languages. This year, the theme we have is Patwa to the World. Patwa to the World. And so we have a great lineup for you where we will just be looking at things that we have been able to do with our language, with Patwa. We will be looking at things that we have done and we will provide updates. So we have, for example, the Wycliffe Bible Society, and we will be talking a little bit about the Bible Project. We have Eric Rosenfeld, who is the author of the Jamaica Saros, and we want to hear from him, like, what was your motivation? What inspired you to do this? We have an update from the Jamaica Language Unit in terms of the work that we have been doing so far in Jamaica on the ground, and they will give us an update on the project we had going last year in the Jamaica Language Unit to make Jamaican official, and a little bit about what we can expect going forward there. We also have Raul Blaze with us. He's an entertainer, he's a vlogger, he's a comedian, and he will be sharing with us. And so, as you can hear, we have a great lineup for you. So, what is all of this about? So, we are celebrating International Mother Language Day, as we mentioned earlier. And this is a time when we pause to reflect on our mother languages all over the world. And here in Jamaica, our mother language is Patwa, affectionately called by others Jamaican Creole, and linguists would just simply say Jamaican. And for us, it has been an interesting time where we have been trying so hard to really allow persons to understand where they can go with language and what they can do with Jamaican Creole. But all of this is about linguistic diversity, and it is not about just promoting persons in terms of monolingualism. But International Mother Language Day is about linguistic diversity because increasingly languages disappear all around the world. According to UNESCO, globally, 40% of the population does not have access to an education in a language they speak or understand. Nevertheless, progress is being made in mother tongue based multilingual education with growing understanding of its importance, particularly in early schooling. And multilingualism and multicultural societies exist through their languages, which transmit and preserve traditional knowledge and cultures in a sustainable way. So this year, the UNESCO is focusing on the theme fostering multilingualism for inclusion in education and society, right? And we in Jamaica are also promoting that in our own way by giving a space to big up Patwa and to just let persons know that Patwa still devout, right? You have some persons who doubt the ability of Patwa to do what other languages can do. And you're going to learn today that indeed Patwa has great reach all over the world. And we are able to do a lot more than people think with our language. So we welcome you to today. We welcome you to International Mother Language Day, and we hope that you will enjoy what we have prepared for you. At the end of our program, we will have a space where we will do questions and answers. So you can look forward to the Q&A and you can type it in to the chat where we will have someone fielding those questions for us. So whatever questions you have, you can make your notes, you can keep them in the back of your mind. And at the end of our presentation, you can ask those questions. On a day like today, we remember all those persons who went before us. Louise Bennett, who promoted the language far and wide, right? We hail persons who have studied our language and brought it to the world, as we say. We hail persons such as Joan Andrew Hutchinson's, all our reggae artists and DJs, and all those persons who use Patwa in their everyday life. My apologies. So we're going to get started. We're going to get started with our presenter from Wycliffe. And this is going to be June Simmons, and she will introduce Wycliffe to us for those of you who are unaware of the work that the Bible Society has been doing in Jamaica. You can learn a little bit about that today. So I welcome June Simmons to come and share with us what has been happening in that realm. Please welcome her as she comes.
Good afternoon. Well, I represent Wycliffe Bible Translators Caribbean, which is a missions organization which focuses on ensuring that all persons have the Word of God in their mother tongue. As I do my presentation, I say a little bit more about that, but my time is very short, so I can't say much. So I'll begin by talking a little about the mother tongue in ministry, because basically that's what we focus on, how to ensure that the persons who speak the mother tongue, the Jamaican language, how they can understand the Bible and understand and get ministered to using the Jamaican language. So first of all, I am going to start by just saying a few words about language in general, mother tongue in ministry. Then I'll say something about our Bible translation project, and then we'll show you a little video based on the translation. So let's reflect a little about the concept of language. Of course, we know language is one of God's most important gifts to man. Without language, culture and civilization would be impossible. Language is a defining feature of human behavior. It is what makes us uniquely human. Every human being is born with the capacity for language and can speak or sign a language. A person's language is the material of his or her prayers, his stories, his music, his conversation. Now, Wycliffe Bible translators believe that it is essential for all peoples everywhere to have the opportunity to hear, understand, respond to God's message in the language that speaks to their minds and hearts. That is their heart language. Heart language? What is that? A person's heart language is the dominant language of his or her mother. That is the mother tongue or mother language, the language that she uses to calm her baby in whispers, songs, sayings with her soothing maternal voice. Our first language is the beautiful sound of which one hears and gets familiar with while in the womb before being born. It has such an important role in shaping our thoughts and emotions, and in framing our thinking, emotions in the spiritual realm. Because the most important stage of our life, childhood, is spent in its imprints. When a person speaks his mother tongue, a direct connection is established between heart, brain, and tongue. This is the language they most naturally use to understand and to be understood. It is also the language that God desires to use in speaking from his heart to ours. When the right information is in the heart language, transformation can occur. The heart language is about the right words, but transformation is also about the right message. That means the message of the Bible. Therefore, the message of the Bible should be in the right words, the heart language. Wycliffe Bible translators believe that the Bible is God's message for people everywhere, and that translated scripture in a person's mother language is the most effective means of communicating this message. Therefore, we need to establish relationships to touch the core of the human being, that is the heart. Because, as Paul says in Romans 10, verse 10, for it is with your heart that you believe and are justified. The most effective, impactful, and transformational ministry takes place when people receive God's word and interact with it in the language that resonates in the core of their being. Our goal must be to penetrate to the very core of the human being, the heart. People need to understand the contents of the Word of God so that His Word, along with the Holy Spirit, can work in their hearts. People need, please change the slide for me. Yes. People need to understand the contents of the Word of God so that His Word, along with the Holy Spirit, can work in their hearts. When the Bible is in the mother language, it is saying to people, please change the slide, God speaks my language. So God wants people to understand His message in the language that reaches deep into their hearts. Lives, attitudes, and relationships are not going to change if the message from God does not reach the heart. The message has to reach the heart, not just the head, in order to impact the person. That's just a little preview into what we do at Wycliffe. Now, we also have a translation project. We have the Western Caribbean Old Testament Translation Project, which started in January 2020. That's last year. And this is a cluster project. It involves Jamaica, San Andres, and Belize, because San Andres and Belize speak a Creole that is very similar to the Jamaican Creole. So far, Jonah has been completed, and we are raising funds to print a trial publication that we want to distribute in the churches and the schools. So we have finished Jonah, and now we have started the translation of the book of Ruth, and chapter 1 is already completed. So what I want to do at this point is to give you a little oral presentation from the book of Jonah, the translated book of Jonah. So get ready to watch. Without hearing.
Okay, June, we seem to be having some technical difficulties with the video. So I'm going to ask you to go ahead and read it for us. We are unable to hear the video at this time. So June, you can unmute yourself again. You're muted. And perhaps you could read it for us instead. We're not hearing the video at this time. Miss Simmons, you're muted.
Oh,
Yes, go ahead.
I was trying to. Can you put on somebody else while I look for it? Because I looked for it. I found an audio that I had saved. I haven't found the written thing to read. So I don't know.
All right.
Can you put on somebody else?
Yes, we
And
will
then-
come back to it. Yes,
Right, okay.
no problem. All right, so thank you for that. So we're going to invite now Raoul Blaze, known as a language teacher and comedian, to come and do his presentation for us. Raoul?
Hey, good evening, Wagwan. Must turn on my camera?
Yes, man, turn on your camera.
Okay. I'm shy. Can everybody see me now?
Yes, we can see you.
Okay. All right, guys, so Wagwan Raul is here. At the end of this, I'll tell you a little bit about me, but right now I'm going to give a quiz, right, to see how much I know about Jamaican proverbs, because in every language, as Aisha said, I'm a language teacher. I teach Japanese, Spanish, French, and I speak some Portuguese. And in every language, the proverb them tell the art of the people them. So I'm going to see how good Uno is on few Jamaican proverb. Some of them won't be as popular as you know them, so it might be very easy, but I'm going to challenge you. So if you don't know the answer, just raise your hand and just see who will answer it, okay? You ready? Oh, yeah, I guess that means yes. All right, the first one is it easy. Number one, me throw me can.
Oh, we have to raise our hands, right?
Yeah, I don't know if you do the raise hand feature. All right,
Yes,
let me just
yes.
Okay, all right. So the raise hand feature. Whose hand is raised? Let me do it again. Raise hand, let me see it again. All right, who that? Aisha. Me throw me can.
Me not call no foul.
Me no can afford because myself so Aisha gone one. That I must see. You understand? Me say who are going to win the prize? The one bag of bulla. All right, the price is one bag of bulla and one bag of bag juice. All right. The next one is never see.
Come see.
Come see. Oh,
Me
June.
hear, who was that?
June first me.
Okay, June 1st year. Lord of God, June 1st year. Lord of God, not ready now. Number 3, monkey must know what him a go. Monkey must know what him a go do with him tail before.
Him put on pants.
Him put on
before him
trousers.
put on pants, before him
Not
put on
Not
trousers,
trousers.
Only thing,
Trousers.
trousers. You can either before him put on trousers or before him buy trousers. So I'm gonna give I'm give 2 on that. 1-1.
That would
Come on,
tie.
man. Come on, man. Let me see what going on.
Wanna update the proverb? What kind of bad
No.
trousers? When the proverb make people order trousers.
No, the original one with me, no, the only one me, for Amazon. Monkey must know when I go do them pants. Monkey, all right, we have updated because Jamaican update now. Monkey must know when I go do them tail before we order trousers on Amazon. From this day forward.
That is really an update, Joseph.
Right? Number 4, sorry. A faithful promise.
A comfort to a fool.
Anything else? Anybody else? A faithful promise.
I don't know the one, yeah.
I don't know what you need.
But that one in a song Patwa-ish.
No, a promise is a comfort to a fool.
Yes.
Right, and that one
That's a faithful promise.
A promise is a comfort to a fool. Me know that one day.
Yeah, that's a one, but yeah. A faithful promise make fool glad. Yes, it's a old one. My granny just
Oh,
faithful.
no.
They are
Oh,
related.
Yeah.
make full.
They are really the same
Okay.
thing, but you know, so based on where you come from in Jamaica, it might have, yes, the same thing as a promise that comfort to a fool. So a faithful promise make fool glad. All right, so that was Junior going with things, man. The man them not going up at all, no boy. You know what the bulla? Jesus Christ. A
One
ginger
that
bulla, you
bulla.
know? All right, some ginger bulla. Let's go. Number 5. I know everything soak up water.
All right. We don't know that one.
Aisha.
I know everything soak up water.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, I mean, I know that one they need a roll.
I know everything will soak up water a sponge.
Okay.
I never hear
One they
that
new
one.
to me.
That's why I purposely chose some ones that which are not so common because all of us know the common ones, right? So if we educate maybe so let's do one when it's so popular. You understand from way back. So
Yes.
part
All
educational
right.
and part competition, all right? So nobody gonna get that one to know. Bad word and ears old never.
What?
Bad word and ears
Wood and
old.
ears old, never.
One word. Bad word and ears old.
Never, nobody.
Yeah, go say agree.
Never agree. Bad word and ears old never agree.
Okay.
All right. But yeah, agree. All right. One
Just if you
record
didn't know
on
that one, there are is a guess.
No, we never know it. I guess me guess.
All right.
Oh,
So big up Cheyenne from YouTube who got the sponge one right.
oh, big up the YouTube audience to get the sponge one right. Yeah, big up on yourself. All right. That want to know every day, double help thief. One day.
Jeez, I mean know
Every
that one
day.
there, no?
God help
Every day, God help.
Watchman.
Watchman. Yes, one day God must help Watchman.
Yes, me know
All
that one
right.
there.
I hear that.
All right. So now
Raul, I hope you add up Joseph points, you know, because they said the man them now going with nothing and Joseph getting
Joseph gone
five.
2. Joseph gone 2. Yeah, man. And then we have 3 more.
We no want no sauce of butter, you know.
All right, I'm gonna get some. So on back juice or cherry milk or Nutri milk or
Nutri milk, no.
sugar water with lime.
Sugar and water we want. Sugar and water with some orange.
With the butter.
With the sour orange just spin that up a jug.
Yes.
Yeah, they have
I don't want the bullet choke, you know, because then say if bullet choke, you won't have to go eat. We're not going to see that. If bullet are thinking to a choke, you have to go eat.
No, sir. Not thinking too.
We're not going to cow. All right, now. Number 8. You go in like a Johnny cake. Aisha, your hand permanently raised.
Please, sorry, me go bring down my hand. Come in another one here.
You know that one there, but if nobody in the chat. No it.
You go in like a Johnny cake and come on that chat. Remember so I go Uno, Lord, you go in like a Johnny cake and
come out like a something.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, like a what? Jesus feed.
Like a something when a favor Johnny cake, none at all.
Well, actually the opposite. Something quite
right.
You come out like festival?
No, you come out like a
you gone to stush. You come out like a what?
Flower.
You go in like a Johnny cake and come out like a fried dumpling.
Oh,
fried
dumpling. Fried dumpling.
Okay.
They know the same thing that.
Exactly. People go to school and come out. That's it. People who, yes, that's it. Them just said, who said, nobody knows the fried dumpling. All right, so nobody not getting that. So 2 more now. All right.
Cherry Ann from YouTube got it, Raul. Big up Cherry Ann.
Big up Cherry Ann. All right. No call alligator long mouth still. No call alligator long mouth still what? Eric.
Yeah. Me hear that one there already. Wow.
No call alligator long
do
mouth.
something.
Till you reach land.
Well,
till you cross over, or till you cross over the pan.
Till you done cross.
Yeah, you know, yes. It's a no call alligator long mouth till you pass him. So
till you pass him, right.
Okay.
So
me know that one, then we just look for the right
1,
way.
2, 3. Okay, and now the last one now. Anybody in the audience get that one right? That one here, I got to be someone in the audience. And the one that get it when you can't do the last one. Say, shut mouth never. Shut mouth never.
Edge. Yeah.
A shut mouth never. There is a delay with the Zoom and YouTube. Okay. Okay. A shut mouth never.
But
One
then,
try. But a shut mouth, you have to do something with food. A shut
Oh.
mouth.
Another one that me know.
Yeah, me know which one you know. Me do a shut mouth, never catch no fly.
Oh.
yes,
Fed.
that's true. Me did. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, me
Well,
know that one there.
a shut mouth, never catch no fly.
I
Okay,
believe it
so
from YouTube. Get it.
okay, thank you, YouTube people. Now jump in. All right, so it look like Miss John, I think you won, and somebody some in the audience get two right, I think, and Joseph get two, Aisha get two, and yes, you win. One somebody win the bull. I said the win already. So yes, guys. So this thanks for participating in this, guys. And I'm Raul Blaze, as Aisha said. I am a languages teacher. I teach Japanese, French, and Spanish. And I was in Japan teaching English for a while. And even though I speak all these languages, not sweet to me like me Patwa. So anywhere in the world, when I go, no matter which language I talk, I will speak of Patwa because it's the most important language. And if you don't have any questions about or if you have any questions about what I do, you just search me at Raul Blaze on Facebook, IG, YouTube, or Twitter. Raul Blaze on any platform. And you can find all my videos on YouTube, YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok. And what I do sometimes, I do videos like these where I quiz people on Jamaican proverb, me talk about the Jamaican language, and I also write some poem like some Louis kind of poem I recite. So big up on yourself. Yeah.
So for everybody who's out there on YouTube listening, it's not Raul Davis that they have to look for, but Raul Blaze.
Thank you. Yes, Raul Blaze. Raul Davis is my band name. Raul Blaze is the name when me take on. So if you want to find me, you have to search Raul Blaze. Through cousin say, if you know if you search Raul Davis, you're not going to find nothing. All of me things them, they hand Raul Blaze.
Raul Blaze. Blaze.
All right. Thank you, Raul, for that wonderful piece where we were able to relive some of the Jamaican proverbs that we haven't heard in a while. I know some of them I definitely know now, but true me not hear them for so long. Take a little while to come back to me, but that was very good. Thank you. And a little later we will see one of Raul's videos. All right,
Aisha, can you lift up your mic just a little bit above your mouth?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks.
No problem. You're not really hearing me so clearly?
No, it's too loud when your microphone's right here, so you gotta lift it up a little bit.
Yes, I understand. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. All right, so we're gonna welcome you now, Eric.
All right, cool.
Eric is the author of the Jamaicasaurus. And basically, we want to know what motivated Eric. Eric is not Jamaican by birth. I'm correct, right, Eric?
Yeah.
Right, but he fell in love with the language. He fell in love with Patwa. And so we want to hear a little bit about his project and what motivated him. What was his inspiration? What make you love Patwa so, Eric? What make you love Patwa so?
That's not easy for answer, give an answer so quick. I mean, if I kind of reveal it little by like step by step. All right,
talk up the things then.
All right, just a moment now. Should I do this in a English or in a Patwa? We'll do it in English. That's easier for me.
All right.
Patwa for my second language. No, Patwa for my second language. How many people would be able to say that Patwa is their second language? That's an unusual situation, right? Here's what the book looks like. This is Jamaicasaurus. And this sells on Amazon.com. And it's the first and only translation dictionary to go from English to Jamaican Creole rather than the other way around. There are several dictionaries that have already been written and many online word lists that are, or glossaries that are for Patwa to English, but not from English to Patwa. This also functions as a thesaurus, and that's how I came up with the name Jamaicasaurus. This version is the common spellings version, if you can see that. But I also have written the same book in Cassidy JLU spellings version, which I call Jamiekan, Jamiekan version of the book, right? So both of these are available on Amazon.com. It's either an ebook or a print to order paperback book, as you see. This has been out for some time now, but I'm not going to go into too much more detail about the business side of that. But just to give you an idea of what's on the inside of the book, here's just a random page right here. I don't know if Uno can see this, if you can see this. But wait, you see, you'll notice if you look at it closely, if you're able to see, that the entries are in English, and then you have in common spellings, common English-based spellings, the translations. And some of these are, some words only have one or two translations that I could find in Jamaican Creole or Patwa. I'll just call it Patwa for now. However, some words there are many, many translations for. And I don't know if you can see right now, but such is the case for low class. I have here a lot of words.
Bring it a little closer, Eric.
What's that?
Bring it a little closer.
You can see there? How's that?
Little better. That little better.
All right. Yeah. So some of the entries in the thesaurus or the translation dictionary have so many translations in Jamaican Patois that's the idea that or the reason that I got the idea of making it into a thesaurus as well, or calling it a thesaurus as well as an English to Patois dictionary. So when you look at the cover, that's what it says, is Jamaican Thesaurus and English to Patois Dictionary. This is 213 pages, so this is no small book. This took a long time. I don't know, crebe, fenke, this is real, all right? So I've had also quite a bit of help from Mr. Farquharson there, who's just spoke for a moment ago. This is in the not the annex, what do you call that? The appendix, that I have lists of expletives and exclamations, which go from mild to moderate to more vulgar over here. I don't know whether you can see that. Then also in the appendix, well, those were expletives, and then here I have exclamations. There is a difference between an expletive and an exclamation. And then it goes on to metathesis and hypercorrection. Examples of these, for example, here. Anyway, there's some interesting things in the appendix at the back of the book. This is a list of plants and trees of use in Jamaica with the scientific name first and then the local Jamaican names. So there's a lot of things in here that can be useful and interesting, especially to foreigners, but also potentially to Jamaicans, especially people who have left Jamaica and moved to Canada or England or the United States or elsewhere and have been away from Jamaica for a while. Maybe they want to see what some new terms that have come up in the meanwhile, or remember some old terms. So I try to include both in these entries as much as possible. And then you have the same pages in a different spelling format, which is this blue version. This has not sold as well, but there have been a few people who have shown interest in it. So I'll give you a sample there. You can see how the translations are written in the Cassidy JLU format, but not exactly the same Cassidy JLU that's been used by the Jamaica Language Unit, but more of a modified version where I've made just a couple of changes that I thought would help make it a little bit easier to approach or to read for the type of person who's not already familiar with that orthography, with that spelling system. And to explain why I did it that way, in the beginning of the book, I'll just read the paragraph that explains this. One of the goals of the Jamaicasaurus is to bridge the gap between the two spelling systems, not only by presenting them side by side, as is done in other versions of this book, but also by altering both systems a little bit in order to make them resemble one another a little more. On the Jamiekan or Cassidy side, the most obvious such alteration found in this book is to maintain the H in the very common words de, we, and se. There is considerable gain, in my opinion, in terms of the goal stated above in doing so with relatively little sacrifice in exchange. Another example is that the OW sound is allowed here along with OU. So if I had the word wow, like, or now, I would spell it NOW instead of NOU. This is just to make the so-called Cassidy or JLU, which I'm using a modified version of here, as I've just explained, to make it maybe a little bit more approachable and familiar looking to Jamaicans who have always used a common spelling version, but without too much sacrifice, in my opinion. So that was a decision I made in the process of writing this. Well, I haven't been able to get into too much of the story about myself and how I got interested in how it is to be a foreigner learning the Jamaican Creole or Patwa language as a second language. Should I just stop here? It's been 7 minutes, or should I say anything about that before I go?
All right, just give us a brief synopsis, just to give the listeners a little bit of insight into who you are and why you did this.
Okay, well, I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, California. I majored in Latin American studies and Spanish and Portuguese language at the University of California, Santa Barbara. I lived in Brazil for a year as a foreign exchange student when I was in high school. I heard Patwa for the first time in music when I was about 13 years old, and I found it absolutely fascinating, and I thought someday I'd like to learn it. I was really trying to go to Jamaica with the foreign American Field Service rather than Brazil, but I couldn't find a host family in Jamaica, so I was sent to Brazil instead. But eventually I made my way back to Jamaica alone at the age of 19, and I did some volunteer work at UE. And through meeting Jamaicans, both in Jamaica and then back in the United States when I came home again, I developed friendships with Jamaican people and gradually learned to speak this dialect. Not very well at first, and it was a bit embarrassing, but eventually I pushed through, especially when YouTube became available and it was possible to watch videos for Oliver at Large, old Jamaican TV show, and sort of record these things and practice. And then I got hold of some books that had been published, like Emily Adams' book, Understanding Jamaican Patois, and a number of other sources. And I just through willpower and desire to learn the dialect that I found every way possible. Eventually went back to Jamaica again to live. And I was always keeping a word list the whole time, coming from English first, so that I could always refer back to it when I wanted to remember how to say something in Patwa. I would go to my word list. And as this word list grew to hundreds of words, I realized this could be made into a translation dictionary from English to Patwa, which didn't exist yet, for other people, other foreigners who would be interested in learning to speak it. But there's all kinds of complications being a foreigner learning to speak Patois. And gradually, when I got to a point where I could speak it credibly, then I could actually use it while traveling in Jamaica without people just laughing at me or without feeling like a fool. And that's wonderful. Last time I was in Jamaica doing some work for a few months, I was really using Patois just out on the street and in the taxi and everywhere. And it was, people just assumed that I had grown up in Jamaica, but that's not the case. I actually just learned through using all these different sources, which was a strange thing to tell people because they were like, why would you do that? Because I love it. Gone to bed.
Nice. So this is a good example of Jamaica to the world. This is
Yeah.
a good example of Patois to the world.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for sharing, Eric. We really love that. We really love say you love the language so much and you put all this effort into learning it. So what that I tell we know is that people out there want to learn the language. And so we have to really get our act together and really have it available for people to learn the language as they, desire, people who just love Patois and want to learn it.
Yeah.
So now we're going to go to Dr. Joseph Parkinson, and he's going to be giving us some updates from the Jamaican language unit. Thank you so much, Eric. And we're off now to hear about what the Jamaican language unit has been doing and get some updates from Joseph. Joseph, it's over to you.
Okay, thanks, Aisha. So it's not just updates that I'll be doing. I have a few other comments, and somewhere in there I will insert my comments. But given that this is International Mother Language Day, I just wanted to speak on this. It's a topic I have spoken on numerous times before. Lots of other people have spoken on. I am kind of the inheritor of a whole long line or many years of advocacy for the language, from Claude McKay to Louise Bennett to Caroline Cooper, Hubert Devonish, and so many other people who have been in this struggle to get the language recognized. Now, I'm starting out with a quote. This quote is actually the title of a book, Don't Leave Your Language Alone, which is the title of a book by linguist Joshua Fishman. And this book was a response to another linguist, Robert Hall Jr., who had written a book titled Leave Your Language Alone. And what Hall was saying in that book essentially was that people should leave their languages to develop naturally. And so you shouldn't plan what would happen in the language and what the language should do. Things must be allowed to develop naturally. And Fishman thought that that didn't really make sense because it now denies a whole lot of languages the same privileges that languages like English and Spanish went through. And the truth is that language planning, developing a language and moving it into official domains and making it the official language of a community is not a natural process. It's an unnatural process for any language. Languages don't automatically become standardized. They don't automatically move into. The speakers of the language have to do this, and it takes a very deliberate effort. That is true for English, it's true for Spanish, it's true for Greek, etc. The speakers have to do that. And I wanted to start there because in 2019, when the Jamaican Language Unit petitioned the government of Jamaica to make the Jamaican language, commonly called Patwa, official alongside English, the Prime Minister made a comment on the language issue. He didn't really reference the petition, but I believe he was responding to the petition. And in that response, he said that the institutionalization of the language is inevitable. That's not his exact words. I'm paraphrasing him here, but he said institutionalization is inevitable. And that kind of gives the wrong impression. It suggests to people out there that if you leave your language alone, it will automatically develop into a language of science and technology and a language that that is official, etc. And as I mentioned before, the speakers of the language have to go about taking the steps towards doing that. And the Jamaican Language Unit has been doing that. Linguists have been doing that for decades. An important part of language planning for any language is what is called status planning. And that is the bulk of the work that has been done, especially by Ms. Liu, by Professor Caroline Cooper, by Professor Hubert Devonish. And that is trying to get even the speakers of the language themselves to understand that this thing is a language, that it is worthy. Then there is corpus planning, which involves now how you build out the language in the areas of science and technology so it can deal with those. And all languages go through that. So for example, English, in building out English to deal with science and technology, English either borrowed words from Latin and Greek, or it created new English words on either Greek or Latin pattern, or some of them are new words which are English. So there are various strategies for doing that. But essentially, I'm trying to say, no language no born big. Even the great English language had to build out, had to go through some sort of planning in order to deal with certain domains in which speakers wanted to use the language. Now, Jamaican has been the language of the nation for quite a while, and how you can know the language of a nation, it is the language that people reference first when they're trying to identify themselves and identify a language. Now, over the years, a lot of people will say, oh, they speak English, etc. Even when they don't speak English at all, they speak Jamaican. And that's because of the brainwash that we have experienced. But when Jamaicans go abroad, it's not English that they use to identify themselves and identify each other. It's Jamaican that they use. So when you're in Toronto, when you're in London, and somebody said to you, Yadi, and you're expected to respond, the conversation from there generally takes place in Jamaican. Plus two, it is the language that newcomers to the country learn first. And so in the 19th century, when people from West Central Africa were taken to Jamaica, people from Nigeria were taken to Jamaica as indentured laborers, the Jamaican language is the language that they learned first. When the Chinese started coming and the Indians started coming as indentured laborers in the 19th century, that's the language they learned first. And then later on, say, for example, with Cuban doctors coming over, or the later migration of Chinese, the Jamaican language is the first language that people learn, not English. And this is because that's the language you need in order to communicate on a daily basis with ordinary Jamaicans. So going back to corpus planning, there was a time when the power brokers out there said, Jamaican is not a language, and it's not a language because it doesn't have any structure, it doesn't have any grammar. And for the past 6 or so decades, linguists have been working to show that the language is indeed structured, it has grammar. We have descriptions of Jamaican done by Beryl Bailey in the 1960s, Frederick Cassidy, 1961, his Jamaica Talk, the Dictionary of Jamaican English by Frederick Cassidy and Robert LePage, to later works by people like Pauline Christie, Hubert Devonish, Stephen Durley Tame, Michelle Kennedy, Sylvia Cohenberg, myself, etc. And there's now a whole host of stuff on the language which shows that it's full of style and pattern. It has grammar, it has rules. And it's those rules which allow people like Eric to now learn the language. If you didn't have rules, then you couldn't teach it, you couldn't learn it. And so we have demonstrated that the language full of style and pattern, and the patterns there are the rules, the grammar of the language. And as I said, there's copious amounts of work on that to prove that. So we're not guessing anymore. Whoever says no in 2021 that Jamaican doesn't have structure, they are not paying attention to the science, to the work on it. And then when we showed that the language had structure and it had grammar, people say, oh, but it's going to cut us off from the rest of the world. But an interesting thing happened. And this is that given the work of people like Miss Lou, who was now using the language on a national level, on a national stage, and also an international stage, and then with the work of dub poets and reggae artists, dancehall artists, movie producers, etc., the language was now being projected on an international stage. And with the migration of Jamaicans abroad, some of them the same people who said to us, nobody uses Jamaican outside of Jamaica. As they moved into the diaspora, they started using the language more and more. And because there are people, now lots of people out there who want to learn the language, this whole view that the language cuts us off from the rest of the world is not true. And what we're finding is that the rest of the world wants to learn. And so many people are stuck with this view that it's not good enough and nobody would want to learn it. And here we have Eric, who spent years not only learning the language, but putting together a thesaurus of the language to share with others who have an interest in the language. And so now the language busts way like be educated. And it busts way in a way that we have to try play catch up now. So we are constantly playing catch up, and this is something that concerns me, because for many of the things that Jamaica is known for, such as Marcus Garvey, reggae music, dancehall music, Rastafari, jerk chicken or jerk pork, patty, and there was one more, slipped me, that all of those things are working class phenomena. But our government hasn't really tapped into the people's own natural resources. I mean, from time to time, they'll make statements about, yes, this is our culture and we like it, etc. But we haven't been playing to our strengths. I was in a discussion the other day about dancehall music, and the dancehall people are still complaining that the government hasn't really created an anchor or a framework for us to capitalize on what ordinary Jamaicans have created. And the language is going in the same direction. And if we're not mind sharp, other people are going to come in and take away from we. And so what has the Jamaican Language Unit been doing? The Jamaican Language Unit has been working over many years. One, as I said, status planning, getting people out there to understand that this thing is a language and it is good enough. Two, we have been doing work in teaching the language in conjunction with the Department of Language, Linguistics and Philosophy at the University of the West Indies. We have had a course for over 20 years now called Introduction to the Structure and Usage of Jamaican, and anybody can sign up for that course. You could register as a specially admitted student to come and do the course if you are not convinced that the language has structure, or if you're already convinced and you want greater knowledge of the structure of the language. The course is Introduction to the Structure and Usage of Jamaican. And I think Aisha is teaching it this semester, called Ling 2810. So there's that. We have also run a bilingual education project, and this is now years now, which demonstrated that Jamaican children, well, first, it's not true that our children will be held back if they are taught in Jamaican. The project demonstrated that very clearly, that the children who were taught in Jamaican and English were not disadvantaged, as some people thought, and that children were more motivated to learn, especially when they learned in Jamaican. And parents took a greater interest in their children's learning, because now a lot of the parents could understand what was going on. So that was a significant piece of work that we did. The work was the results were presented to the ministry, but the ministry at that time wasn't really ready to give a full ear to the results and the implications of those results. So we're still waiting for them to call us back and say, hey, let's talk about this thing and how we move forward. We have been looking at creating a corpus for the language, and that will help us to do things like translation, especially machine translation. And that is particularly important in the context of the call by Justice Sykes about a year or so ago, that we need an app to translate in the court system, because so many Jamaicans have been disadvantaged in their own court system because the system deals with them in a language that they don't speak or that they don't really wield 100%. And it is interesting that in Jamaica, Jamaicans are denied rights that they can get outside of Jamaica. So in Canada and in the UK, Jamaicans have the right to an interpreter if they have to interface with the justice system, but not so in Jamaica, because of course, the system here assumes that all Jamaicans speak and understand English, which is not the case. There is a law that says that you have the right to an interpreter, but how that right is interpreted is if you speak a language like Spanish or French or Swahili, which means that in Jamaica, non-Jamaicans have greater rights to the resources of the system than Jamaicans. Jamaicans continue to be denied. And so it's really now providing the resources to help the state to carry out its functions. And so machine translation is on the horizon, and also building corpora in order to help us to provide better descriptions of the language for people like Eric. Well, Eric is now a Patwa buff, but people who are now beginning, they want beginners text to work at the language, to work in learning the language. So we are in the process of developing, and that is near completion, beginners Jamaican course. You can watch the Broadcast Jamaican social media pages. We'll announce when that is ready, for teaching non-Jamaicans the language. And that was developed in conjunction with Bertram Gale, who was also involved in the translation of the Jamaican New Testament. And of course, you heard from Ms. Simmons that they are translating, this is Wycliffe Caribbean, the Old Testament into Jamaican. So very soon, we are going to have the entire Bible in Jamaican. And so really and truly, the Jamaican Language Unit, in the absence of the support from the state, is trying to push forward in ensuring that we make the resources available, that we have the resources and we make them available for Jamaicans. And that's where I would leave it. So I'd say we can't leave our language alone, because languages do not develop on their own. Speakers develop languages and move them into other domains. And that is what we are trying to accomplish with Jamaican, so that we play to our strengths, we play to the thing that non-Jamaicans are interested in. And in so doing, create an industry out of the language. I don't want the language to go the same route as the music, where now some of the largest players and also the largest beneficiaries of the proceeds of Jamaican music are not Jamaicans. So I'll end it there, waiting for the discussion afterwards.
Very thought-provoking summary of where it is that we've been and where we're going. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you for that. And guys out there, please remember that you can type in your questions for our question and answer. We're wrapping down now, so we are going to spend about 10 minutes with you, just answering your questions, and we hope to be finished by 3:30. So by about 3:15, we will start answering those questions, okay? June, are you ready for your reading?
Yes, yes.
Okay, if you
There
can
are,
make it like a minute.
okay, I've just read chapter
Yes.
1.
All right, good.
Okay, Jonah chapter 1. Jonah run away from God. So now, a meteor boy picnic Jonah get a word from the Lord we say, go on down at the big city Nineveh, no, and tell them say me see them a go on with too much wickedness. But Jonah make up him mind for go to Tarshish, where did they far from Nineveh, fi try run away from God. Him go down a Joppa and find one ship where go to Tarshish. So him pay him fear and go down in the ship fi go Tarshish with them fi try go far from the Lord. But the Lord just send one strong piece of breeze upon the sea, and it turn out in a one storm so strong, it shake up the ship till it nearly mash up. So then the sailor man them catch them afraid, and every one of them ball out to them own a God where them serve. And then start dash where the things them where them have on the boat to make it lighter. But all them time there, Jonah did there down way down in the, oh dear. Oh, sorry. Oh gee, I thought something on it. Oh,
All right, June, no worry yourself, because guess what? We give them a taste of how the Bible sound in a Patwa. Right, guys? Go out and buy your Patwa Bibles. It's available out there at most bookstores, right? And it's also available at the Jamaica Language Unit. So, and the Jamaica Language Unit, for those of you who do not know, is on the campus of the University of the West Indies. So, go out and get your Patwa Bibles. That was a little taste of the story of Jonah. All right, so we're going to go right into a little entertainment from Raoul Blaze's YouTube page. We mentioned it earlier. You can go and follow him and like his videos on YouTube. So we're going to show you one of his videos right now as we close.
No sound.
We're not hearing the sound.
All right, tell me if you're hearing it now.
So I speak the English language because not only is it one of my native
Yes.
tongues, but it was the language used to colonize my ancestors. I do know that TikTok doesn't like when black people speak like this and prefer us to just entertain. But anyway, that's why I speak the English language. Español. Me gusta el español porque el español me da un sentimiento de pasión, de poesía, como los de Gabriel García Márquez. Entonces, le français, je parle français quand je voudrais être en personne de diplomatie, en personne romantique, intéressant, parce que le français a quelque chose de je ne sais quoi. Alors, chocしたいときは、日本語を話すですね。日本人皆さん、日本語わかる？わかるよ。そうですか。そうですよね。But anytime we have to cut off people that have to talk in a patois, because we can't tell people what them are in the other language. So them want to cut you off, they'll cut you off in a patois. Thank you. So I speak the English language because not only is it one of my native tongues.
All right, thank you. We can stop that now, and just to let you know too that the Jamaicasaurus is available. Eric, you want to tell them where they can get the Jamaicasaurus, just so that persons can know how to purchase it?
Yeah, you just go on Amazon.com. It's available on Amazon, and it does ship to Jamaica, although I don't know what the shipping costs are. And it's also available as an electronic book, as an ebook there for Kindle. So you just go to Amazon and even if you Google Jamaicasaurus, it'll take you to the Amazon page. You don't even have to go first to Amazon because there's nothing else out in the world called Jamaicasaurus. So it's Jamaica with saurus from thesaurus at the end. Yeah, all one word.
Yeah, man, me like it, me like it.
Yeah.
All right, and just about our own broadcast Jamaican. Also follow them on YouTube, Instagram. They are on Instagram as well. If you want to learn Patwa, if you want to like what Eric did do, and just read everything where him could have found in a Patwa, broadcast Jamaican is a place for you as well. Also, written material is there. A lot of stories translated into Patwa from English. And so you can just go to Broadcast Jamaican on any of those platforms and you will see what is
And spell it out for them now.
Broadcast, all right? So Braadkyaas, Jamaican, Jamaikan. And I know that a lot of all of you up on the YouTube right now, so now we see it. So just like and subscribe and you will get the updates. All right, so we're gonna open up now for question and answers. So type in your questions into the chat. You can type questions for Wycliffe, and June will answer them. You can type questions for Eric about the Jamaicasaurus. You can ask questions of Raul about what he does, about his vlogs, about his comedies. You can ask questions of Joseph about anything that he said in his presentation about the Jamaican being official and Jamaica to the world. So we're gonna open up our chat boxes now for any questions you may have. So we're waiting on your questions.
So this is just in the chat box, you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, but it's in the YouTube chat. So
so we can't see that from Zoom?
No. So what our administrator will tell us when the questions come. So let me tell him to so go ahead and put it in the general chat, please, so that everyone can see. All right, so here's a question. Damien says the book is sold out in paperback. Oh, that's not a question, it's a comment.
Which book?
Jamaicasaurus is sold out in paperback.
That's strange because they're supposed to print it on demand. So it should be possible to buy and then they print it right away.
Okay. So so Eric will check on that.
Oh, you know what it is? There's an old version of the book. And that's not the one that they should look for. They should look for the new version.
Okay, so look for the new version of the book, please. The Jamaicasaurus has an old version and a new version.
And I don't even want them to sell the old one, but they won't stop. So, yeah.
Okay. I just want to big up all those persons too who were able to answer the Proverbs questions. Yeah, man, in a Talawa. Them questions are never easy at all.
Big up on yourself.
Big up on yourself. So I hear too that Shalika says she love our Patwa. Big up yourself, Shalika. What love with language, man. All right, so if there are no questions, we are gonna end. Okay, one question. There's one question coming. We're waiting. And big up Dacia. Dacia Shaw, big up yourself. All right, so Damena is asking Joseph if he believes we should be able to monetize the language and how exactly should we do it? Oh, Damien, not Damien, Damien. Damien is asking Joseph if you believe we should be able to monetize the language, and if yes, how exactly do we do it?
All right, thanks for that question, Damien. And my first response would be, but after we know fool, if we can make money, we're supposed to make money off it. And I think if money is to be made, we should be the first ones to make money off it because it's our cultural product. So it's a definite yes to that. Now, the how of it is the next question. So there's always a route of books. There's also various, I should point out, we have been making money off the language, just that we haven't realized. So in terms of how well Jamaican music does, Jamaican music hasn't done well in spite of the language. The language is a part of the attraction of the music. So I can assure you that if our music didn't have this interesting language, it wouldn't be as popular as it is. So that's one way. So the language paired with the music is a way of monetizing, and we have been doing that for a very long time. Through books, through books and audiovisual media, and those become important, especially where you try to teach the language. So as we teach the language to non-Jamaicans, there is going to be a demand for materials in the language. And so you have to create more. And let me just point out that English is not just a language. English is a business. English is one of the biggest businesses around the world now. And we would like to pattern that. And how is English a business? That the English as a second language is being taught all around the world. And for that, you have to create books, you have to create other materials for instruction, for learning. There are testing bodies that makes lots of money. So for those people who have had to do the IELTS tests or any of the Cambridge tests, that's how you monetize a language. And then as we provide other services for non-Jamaicans. So I would say those are very tangible ways, creation of apps. So as people want to learn the language because of the music and because of other cultural products that Jamaica produces, they will now need apps for translation, apps for playing games to learn the language, etc. So there's a whole lot that we can do to monetize. The Jamaican Language Unit is making, well, we have been doing that for several years, taking steps to do that. It's a slow process, but we're getting there little by little, and we will keep the public informed.
All right, thank you. And I must add that as young people, you can also be creative. There are so many other ways that we can monetize, you know. Persons out there want Patwa, and so if we can give it to them in various forms, then do it and make it happen for yourself, right?
Can I comment something?
Yes, go ahead, Eric.
I know something about this from personal experience too, you know, with this book. The market for Jamaican Patwa language materials like this book that I've written is not as big as a lot of people think. And because the language is not needed for survival the way other foreign languages are, people are not looking for these types of materials as much. I think there has to be kind of an effort to develop interest in materials and whatever, you know, is being sold to help learn the language. It's kind of a development of demand to some degree, and also appreciating the interest that people have that goes beyond just necessity, but also their own personal interest in entertainment, you know. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you. So in other words, we can just put it out there and leave it. We have to market what we have to offer.
That's exactly right. If you just put it out there and leave it, you may
Yes.
find that you're not really making much money back. Yeah.
Right. All right then. All right. So we have a few questions rolling in now. All right, you guys, you're rolling in, and I think we may be able to answer about 3 more questions. So I'm going to start with Sherian Farquharson. Would Patwa be considered your second language if you grew up in Jamaica but were not allowed to speak it as a child? Who is going to take that one? Would Patwa be considered your second language if you grew up in Jamaica but were not allowed to speak it as a child? And just to note to your Cherry, and that not being allowed to speak it does not necessarily mean that you do not speak it, right? A lot of us grew up with that challenge where Patwa was viewed as less than by a lot of persons, but that didn't stop us from speaking it on the playground or anywhere else when no one is looking. So, but I'm going to allow Joseph to take that one. I heard him speaking, so he will take that one. Go ahead, Joseph.
All right, yes, and that's an excellent question from Sherian. There are a few people in Jamaica who are second language speakers of Jamaican. These are people who grew up in English speaking or English dominant homes, and many of them attend prep schools as opposed to your primary schools. A lot of our primary schools are Jamaican dominant spaces. Attend prep schools and are not introduced really to Jamaican until they go to high schools. So the universe was kind to poor working class Jamaicans, that many of the best high schools in Jamaica are public schools, are publicly funded schools. So no matter how much money you pay for go prep school, everybody are try getting at the same high school because the public schools are some of the best. And when they get to high school, then there's a need to use the language of the majority, which is Jamaican, in order to fit in. And so those people could be seen as second language speakers of Jamaican because they learned Jamaican at a later point in time. And it doesn't mean that they're not bilinguals, because there is a thing called consecutive bilingualism. And consecutive bilingualism means that you speak both languages natively. So this is if the languages are introduced sufficiently early, but you didn't get both of them at the same time. So you got one first and then you added another one. And this is different from simultaneous bilingualism, where you're getting the two languages at once. And a lot of Jamaicans are simultaneous bilinguals. And then there are some that are consecutive bilinguals, either in that they learned English first and then learned Jamaican, or they had Jamaican first and then they learned English later on. So it's quite possible, Sharian.
Thank you, Joseph. And I hope that, Sharian, I hope that answered your question. What we're going to do is we're 1 minute away from our end time. So I'm going to take one last question, but I'm going to ask Broadcast Jamaican to just publish answers for the other questions on their Facebook and Instagram pages. So guys, that is the incentive to go and follow them and see what content they're putting out, because unfortunately we do not have enough time to answer all these questions. So, but I'm going to take one more from Charlene Henry, and I'm going to put that to Raul. I'm going to ask you, do you think Jamaicans are doing enough to own our patois? Raul, that one.
Oh, do you think Jamaicans are doing enough to own our patois? No, I don't think so. I think because some of us still, as someone says, some of us still have that shame of patois, because I always tell people that whenever I hear the word "you chat bad," it is an oxymoron, because I don't believe you can chat bad And the unfortunate thing about that is that we're repeating something that we've been told for decades. We were told that the further away our language is from the mother tongue, from the imperialist tongue, that is how bad or poor speaking is graded. So if someone who grew up in like northwestern Clarendon or southern St. Elizabeth speaks Patwa outside of the regular Patwa, which like is deep rural, they are called your dark or your chat bad. So I don't think we are doing enough to own it. We need to own Patwa and all its diverseness in order to properly own it. Like every other language, there is diverseness and diversity, and people accept them. We have to accept that a person who grew up in Northwest Clarendon or from St. Elizabeth would not speak like someone who grew up in, mainland Jamaica per se. So we have to appreciate it first in order to own it.
Thank you so much, Raul. All right, so I just want to thank everyone who came to be a part of this presentation today. Big up to our audience on YouTube. Big up to our audience on Facebook and Instagram. And I just want to say, continue owning Patwa. You asked the question, but I want to encourage you, continue own up your language, because I feel own, right? And just continue to celebrate International Mother Language Day by posting something on your social media page about your language, and put the hashtag IMLD for International Mother Language Day, and we will pick it up at Broadcast Jamaican and otherwise, and we will also be able to share what you are putting out there. All right, so big up and thank you for joining us, and continue to celebrate later at 6. Is it 6 Jamaican time, Joseph?
6 Jamaican time. Yeah.
Right, 6 Jamaican time. We also have another conference. Joseph, can you just quickly tell them a little bit about that one and invite them to tune in?
Okay, so at 6 on this same channel, we are going to be talking about the indigenous languages of the Caribbean. We'll get actually speakers of these languages or community activists, and some of them are both, speaking about the state or the status of the languages and what they are doing to maintain them and to revitalize them. And by the way, most of us were taught in history class that the Tainos died out. We have a Taino a Jamaican Taino in the session at 6. So if you want to see what a Taino looks like, you have to come at 6 on the same Broadcast Jamaican YouTube channel to see and hear a Jamaican Taino. And we also have a guest from Belize and one from Guyana. And we have Dr. Joan Ferreira from UWI's St. Augustine campus, who does language revitalization work. So that's 6 Jamaica time. Also, the Guyana Languages Unit is having a session on the languages of Guyana right at this moment. And so we're going to ask people to go over. We will post in the chat on YouTube the information for joining that session. So that's a session on the languages of Guyana being hosted by the Guyana Languages Unit, and that is going on right now. Thanks, Aisha.
All right. So once again, thank you all for joining us. Thank you for your patience, and thank you for such an interactive session. We like man. All right, so thank you all. And we'll see you next time out there in the social media world. As you have already, I see some persons saying they have already bought the Jamaicasaurus and they have already liked and subscribed and all of those things. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, and we'll see you guys. Oh, and somebody saying that they love Raul's videos. Okay, big up on yourself.
Thank
all
you.
Right. And all
Aisha.
the best. Yes, Raul.
Aisha, me love you whatnot.
All right, thank you.
You mean our
Thank
buffet?
you very much.
Our buffet.
Right. The old time one them too, you know. Yes,
One
man.
time more said for look at some things that will shine on the touch from 1993 to now. So, yeah.
Wedding present them.
All
All
right.
right, guys. So thank you so much. It was great. And we see you the next time. Walk good.
Give thanks. Bless up.